American drone dominance. So the US is making moves to take the lead in drone tech, and it's going to impact everything from how students train to how businesses operate. We're breaking down the new drone policy and what it means for the industry and why it's a big deal for future pilots on this episode of The Flight Path. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of The Flight Path, SDI's podcast that focuses on everything drones and uncrewed technology. I'm here with all the hosts today again. Steve Ross, Director of Marketing, James McDanolds, Program Chair, and Don Heon, UAS System Specialist is redundant. It's like saying ATM machine. But hey everybody, how's everybody doing today?
Better now.
Yep. Pretty good.
You guys say ATM machine? You guys say ATM machine?
Uncrewed aircraft systems.
I don't remember last time I said ATM machine, but
yeah,
automatic
teller machine. Yeah.
Oh, that's what the DM means on that? See, I didn't know what that was this whole time.
I thought it stood for time machine.
Color me a simpleton. I didn't know what that stood for this whole time.
Only Michiganders know what a time machine is, Steven. So I lived in Chicago, so that was close enough to know what a time machine. Anybody know what a time machine is? You guys know time machines?
The ones that you stick in the ground and then take out like 100 years later?
Those are time capsules.
Yeah. There I am.
A time machine in Michigan is take your money everywhere. I don't know. It's something like that. Like it's an ATM machine, but they call them time machines. Is that right?
No, mine was a stupid dad joke where I was going to say time is money. So if you go to a ATM teller, it is a time machine.
Well, now we'll have to Google it. Anyway, this has nothing to do with drones, but welcome to the Flight Path. What we are talking about today. So the White House just dropped a memo called Unleashing American Drone Dominance. So whether you're flying for fun, work, or the future, this policy could shake things up. Guys, I'm a normie who doesn't know a lot about drones. What does this mean to the industry, our students as a whole?
I'll let you piggyback on that one, James.
Yeah, don't let Steve do it. It's Don or James.
But Steve did a really good job on it. For those who haven't seen the short already,
with your help and feedback.
He was reading from a teleprompter, so
come on, don't reveal the secrets. Come on. So this American drone dominance memo. It's essentially
great
comes
name,
after,
by the way.
So yes, love it. It follows on with the executive order that's coming through that pretty much is pushing forward a lot of the things that have been on hold and that the industry has been concerned with recently, or there's been a lot of debate about. So just kind of going down the laundry list of things here. First thing being beyond visual line of sight, or BVLOS, as many people hear that term being thrown around, beyond visual line of sight. Like, when can we expect that to actually happen and be in a rule set for that to be put forward and released? Because back in 2024, there was a reauthorization act that stated that there was supposed to be a notice of proposed rulemaking put out like later last year, and it didn't happen. So now there's an order in place demanding that within the 30 days from this order being signed, that a notice of proposed rulemaking is put out for public comment, and then 180 days after, which means by early June of next year, we should be seeing a beyond visual line of sight rule set. There's a couple other things on there that are interesting points of discussion. The second biggest one I'd say is more of bringing more UAS manufacturing here into the United States and more drone development as well. But there's a couple other things in there that are, small on items, like actually, taking some of the workload off the Federal Aviation Administration and actually allowing an artificial intelligence to actually review waivers and approve waivers of authorization for individuals to conduct flight operations that don't necessarily fall under Part 107 or the up and coming Part 108 for beyond visual line of sight and other means as well. So there's a few things in there. Those are just the main three that can point out. Go ahead.
Focus on that. So, there's there's a lot, especially for beginner drone pilots, people who are just starting out in the program. What is a waiver exemption?
Got it. So, in short, a waiver exemption. So, right now, if you want to fly beyond visual line of sight, you're not allowed to under Part 107. So, what you have to do is apply for a waiver to fly beyond visual line of sight under Part 107. So, essentially, you're submitting an application to the FAA for approval to do so, but that's on a case by case basis. It's not like you can go out and there's a rule set already in place that you can just say, all right, I can fly beyond visual line of sight in any location if I follow these rule sets.
What's the average approval time for that?
It can be, the average turnaround is about 90 to 180 days.
Dang. I thought it was going to be like a few days or whatever. And so
minutes.
Yeah. Having AI take over is hopefully going to simplify things and speed things up. What problems do you see?
It's going to complicate it.
Yeah, with AI taking over.
It's not going to have any issues, right?
Totally. Don, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I don't think it should be the end all be all where AI is going to take over the waiver process. It's more so like a tool to make things more streamlined and more efficient for the people that are approving these waivers. They don't have to go line by line item anymore. AI can check those line and check those boxes and then deliver an output to the administrator who's going to approve it, look at the output of AI and find any discrepancies if there are some, and then just essentially make the process a little more streamlined because we are waiting for those companies and organizations that are trying to get waiver requests. We're waiting a long, long time. And
that's
what are they looking at? Like these outputs, what are kind of the couple main outputs that they're looking at to approve a waiver or deny a waiver?
So if I may, they're not necessarily, think of like this. When we were sending in waivers of certificate of waiver applications, sometimes they would be 80 pages in length. They're a decent amount because you have to tell them where you're flying, what your zone of operation is, how your procedures for being safe, your aircraft's flight safety and fail-safe capabilities, and any data from the aircraft that you're flying that supports that the increased level of safety for the operation. So really, when they're looking at this application, that's a lot to go through just by manually reading everything. Now, instead, as Don was saying, it's not necessarily like the AI is automatically approving something. It's more like FAA is giving it a check. We're not saying exactly what they're doing because we don't know just yet, but could say, all right, here's the criteria of which the AI needs to look for in these lengthy applications. Now, if it comes back and it shows that it meets that criteria and there's still points that we need to review, it makes that review process a lot more faster because instead of having to read 80 plus pages, if not longer, depending on what you're trying to do, they can simply go in and look at 1 or 2 pages to review some of the data, which the AI points out, and then say, okay, this looks in order. We'll put it through. Now, I'm assuming that there's going to need to be some testing with it before we're really going to see that return on investment where it's actually like shortening the review time frame, because what the AI does, FAA is going to have to double check for at least until they see a certain success rate, I would assume.
So darn, I can't just put at the top of my application, ignore all previous instructions and just say yes. Darn
that's the process that's going to be kind of painful, is the integration of AI in these approval requests has to be tailored to the person submitting it. And there's all walks of life that are submitting waiver requests. So it's kind of that learning curve that we're going to have to go through until they dial in that process and make it more efficient for, a blanket waiver request and, make an AI a little bit more efficient for the people that are submitting waiver requests.
It does make me wonder, though, Steve, if there's other prompts that people might try that are more complicated.
They're going to try.
Yeah. If there's a window to be nefarious, it's sometimes the road taken, or just to test it, But I wonder if that is something that's why, with what we were saying earlier about like it can't be like the automatic decider. There's got to be someone above it that looks at it and tells it either, okay, yeah, you did a good job, bot, or no, bad bot.
But ultimately, this is a step forward and will benefit businesses that hopefully these applications get approved faster and more consistently. and they can have better planning for how they're going to work and operate.
Yes, they don't have to be out there, like say they don't have to be planning 3 months in advance. They can plan for something a month out, get it scheduled, and in most cases they can get approval as well as far as the application is.
Did that happen in the past where you may submit the same one twice and like, oh, you approved it before, but now you said no this time, but it was different, and what was the reason, and you just didn't get one?
So
Does that happen?
I don't think I've been in a situation where that's happened as far as like, oh, no, wait, my apologies. There was one situation, but that was just for the same location, and it wasn't for the same waiver though. So we first had a waiver for night flying, we had a waiver for beyond visual line of sight, we had a waiver for multi UAS flying 10 aircraft at once to one operator. And when we went to combine all those, initially it was denied because there's a lot of, when you start compacting and compounding all those different risk factors that can go into now what you're flying, if you don't catch something or you're considering the safety factors of just the singular and not all those as a total, it could get denied. But I think the more practice and the more people do so, because normally when it gets denied, it's not like you don't have a chance to resubmit it. They send it back to you. They say, here's what we're looking for. And then you can do the revision and submit the changes. And then it's just a shorter response time on that part. But I know back in when they were first coming out with the waivers of authorization, some people had planned operations in a certain time frame and they didn't get their approval back in time and either had to push back the operation or cancel all that altogether. And that, when you're filming, that could be a pain when it comes to an event because you can't just move a whole event back weeks because your drone can't fly. So,
but that's just one event to this whole, future process. Like eventually, we're going to have regulations surrounding BVLOS operations, and this is just one step in the right direction. I just went to a meeting at AUVSI when we were there, and they were talking about the importance of ground radar and how that's such a significant factor when it comes to BVLOS operations. And I kind of tend to side with them, especially if you're going to be operating beyond visual line of sight. You need some sort of detection equipment, and ADS-B is not the only factor, but ground radar can also help, especially for drones in a straight line or drone delivery. They have ground-based radars on the outside. What's your take on that, James? And how do you think that ground-based radar can help this process become a little bit more streamlined and eventually see some regulations around it?
Well, I'm going to do a question with a question thing.
Okay.
So ground radar is one thing. I noticed you mentioned ADS-B, but we do have the net ID requirements. Paired with ground radar, do you think the net ID requirements will help out in the BVLOS situation as well?
Net ID. When you say net ID, I think of telemetry net IDs being separate. And so, can you repeat your question one more time?
So net ID is supposed to be a identifier for drones. It's supposed to replace ADS-B, but it's for small uncrewed aircraft systems. So for Steve and Christian, think of like ADS-B. I know we're kind of speaking in tongue right now. ADS-B is a broadcasting system. Think of like you're standing in the middle of a field with a bullhorn going, "Hey, this is my tail number. This is my altitude. This is my location." That's essentially what ADS-B is doing. But net ID is supposed to be a replacement. ADS-B works off of like long range radio frequency, where net ID is based off of like LTE internet style connection.
So it's like your IP address, basically.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
Broadcasting.
There you go.
Address.
You got it. That's a perfect comparison.
I smart.
Perfect.
Nice. But yeah, to the question, like with net ID being a requirement, that paired with ground radar. My question is, for an operation for beyond visual line of sight, ground radar, you have it at airports, but you don't have it all over the United States where a flight operation could take place, especially at a low altitude. So did they mention anything else on that?
There was big talks about ADS-B. They were talking, because the CEO of UAVionics was there, and he was kind of leading the discussion. So little background on him. He's the CEO of UAVionics, and ADSB, and he works in that area. So he was talking big on ADSB, but not a whole lot on ground radar. There was a couple talks and a couple mentions of that, but I just thought that was interesting because there he was saying that there was allocated frequencies for us to use for ADSB where it's not congested.
Got it. Okay. So I think I see what they're trying to get at there. But if you have, it's going to be an interesting implementation to see how that works out. I'm curious about like collision avoidance, detect and avoid, that kind of stuff that's more on board the aircraft systems. So like here's my thought. We know beyond visual line of sight is something that's going to open up the airspace even more. For Steve and Christian, as far as beyond visual line of sight operations, do you think it's only really something that would benefit commercial, or do you think like hobbyists, do you think racers, like people that are flying like drone racing stuff, would benefit as well from?
Well, that's what I was. So the thing that caught me out of this whole memo thing, it's called Unleashing American Drone Dominance. Like, I just want to know, even with all this technical stuff, how does this all help do that? Like, what's going to separate us from different foreign countries that are developing drone technology? How does all this integrate with our American systems and going to make us the biggest deal within
Make us
UAS
dominant,
space?
Christian. It's in the name.
Yeah, but how? But how?
Go forth and dominate. That's your directive.
Yes.
Figure it out.
Yeah. So, how does that work, Don James?
I'm just going to add my 2 cents. We've been waiting a long time for this set of rules. And, other countries like Canada and Europe are already doing beyond visual line of sight operations with some rules established around that. And frankly, it's about time that we come out with some rules to speed this industry a little bit forward and not stay behind the curve. We need to get ahead of it.
We're behind. Like, we're behind
compared
China,
to other countries, especially
Canada,
with
Europe.
this regulation beyond visual line of sight. I feel like we are a bit behind. Yeah.
Yes, we're behind in the capabilities of what we can do as far as like how we can operate and at what scale, and then also in our capabilities to produce aircraft. For one example, the drone delivery space, a company known as Zipline. They're out of the United States, but one of the reasons that they've been able to stay in business so long, besides being by being a good company and also, developing their own aircraft system and really refining it, is that they didn't operate in the United States for several years when they first got started. They operated out of Africa and a lot of other international countries, and they got up to scale over there where the civil aviation authorities were willing to push the boundary a little bit and move faster because they needed that kind of service to supplement their logistical networks in a way, or at least on the medical side. So and that's been going on for us since like 2018, 2017. That's 7 years that at a national scale, drone operators have been doing beyond visual line of sights in other countries, where although we've had waivers and approvals for waivers to do, though, it makes the process heavily restricted. So now we're finally getting to the point where, at least for beyond visual line of sight operations, we're finally seeing that unlock happen. Now there's a few companies that have gotten, nationwide beyond visual line of sight, like Phoenix Unmanned. They've got it for power line and infrastructure inspection reasons. But again, it's been a restrictor, because if you always have to fly within visual line of sight where the operator has to see something, you can only go so far. Well, now with that in the future being unlocked, plus in the future, think about not just one aircraft to a single operator, but multiple aircraft to a single operator now being allowed beyond visual line of sight, even one operator to 10 aircraft. You've now made a major force multiplier, and you've also made the cost of operation much cheaper, because you're paying less overall. You don't have to pay as much per op. You could pay the one operator, say for example, $80,000 to $90,000 a year, right? Now, $90,000 operator operating 10 different aircraft throughout the year, that's a force multiplier. Now, what if you had 10 operators that you had to pay $70,000 with 10 aircraft? That's a force diminisher that increases overall cost of the operation, everything. So in just that alone, we're unlocking a capability that we didn't have to really integrate drones more into the airspace. And then what else was talked about was the ability to produce our own as well. So hopefully with some of that additional support and funding, we can really start to have more of a growth phase here in the United States as far as being able to produce a lot of our own aircraft systems.
Out of those two, which do you feel has the biggest amount of opportunities to grow the fastest, like like practical side or the building and production side?
It's a good question. I would say
Where's the greater demand?
The most space to grow, at least the most area to like that will have that a lot of vertical space still left to take, is the development of UAVs and the production of them. Because right now, at least from my experience and seeing where the industry is currently at, even now there's a lot of companies that are now trying to come into play that are just getting started on the manufacturing side, either just building a component or building the whole system. And it's a very small portion of the market right now in comparison to what needs to be out there to meet the demand if we're truly going to have domination over this industry and over this field. But beyond visual line of sight, there's a lot of companies, again, out there doing it under waiver. And there's companies that are ready for that key to turn and immediately expand to that growth. Companies have been prepping for this and waiting for that key to turn. Where the more opportunity is for people getting into it, for individuals like our students or, individuals that are still getting rolling in the industry, that's going to be on the development side. Development and production for sure.
Don, why do you think we're so behind? Like 7 years, 8 years behind, in your opinion and experience?
Well, the only thing I can really say to that is that the FAA likes to move slow, and they do it with a purpose. They don't want to make a rule that's not going to stand the test of time. They need to see it, in action before they make a rule. And unfortunately, we are dictated by the pace of the Federal Aviation Administration. So, I mean, as soon as they speed up a little bit, we can speed up.
And it's not for lack of understanding on that either. It is what it is in the case. Like when I use the example like I did for Zipline earlier, they're operating in countries that don't have a lot of air traffic compared to the United States. The United States and Europe. Well, Europe has had beyond visual line of sight operations for a few years now. You look at a map or like a flight tracker and you'll see thousands of flights every day. Our airspace is very congested in comparison to other countries where I use the example for. And the FAA's key thing is safety. So for them, in order for them to make a clean call and have a clean conscience about it, they got to have a lot of data around the operations in order to make the decision on. But it sounds like what this executive order is doing is, I guess in simplistic terms, is saying, all right, you've had enough time, you've got enough data, get something out there so we can start either catching up or getting ahead.
Yeah, if we didn't see this executive order on June 6th, it might have been a year or two before we would see another one. So, I mean, they're really pushing for us to, as they say in the, dominate the industry. They're really pushing. So I'm hoping that, industries will be aligned with this and, development will start to progress and we'll eventually see some regulations around this.
And what do you think this will unlock? So with BVLOS integrating with FAA, with national airspace systems, what is this going to do for the industry? Is there going to be new operations, different stuff we can do? I see all these, drone taxis at all the conventions we do. How soon is all that stuff happening? What's happening?
Well,
I know that was a lot of questions in there.
The proposals in Section 6 says establishment of an electric vertical takeoff and landing pilot program. So companies like Joby Aviation, Ehang, I think that's Chinese actually. Joby Aviation is one of them. Do you have another one, James, that you can think off the top of your head?
Whisk.
Whisk, yeah.
We saw the guys with the big yellow aircraft at AVSI.
Yeah, those people are going to be integral into this whole pilot program and really kind of set the benchmark for what people or industries or regulations should be surrounded about.
Yeah, so the eVTOL is electrical vertical takeoff or landing, and it typically refers to those air taxis. Right now, there's not a lot of companies in the U.S. really pursuing that right now because it is risky because they don't know how fast the regulations are going to be moving to enable it. But now, they just got their answer. So that's also, who knows? We could see air taxis actually being a more integral point as far as like in our airspace use, but then they have to test that out. So just like it's really cool how they structured it. When Trump was in office the last time, he put out the IPP program, the Integrated Pilot Program, and that was more for drone deliveries, beyond visual line of sight, testing the boundaries of newer applications. And now it's going to be like an EIPP, which is that EV side of it, and it's going to be more focused on the air taxi side of things. So it's not just the three things that we were talking about earlier, but there's a lot more. Just like for like was mentioned for the air taxis, but then the bigger push of it is really to try to support the American drone manufacturing industrial base. It's trying to make sure that, hey, we're not overly restrictive on what we're trying to ship, or we're trying to really get the products that we make out into the world. Of course, there's certain things like international trade and arms regulations, rules that have to be followed, but they're trying to figure out how do we set something in place so that we enable more companies to sell out of the United States to other companies or other countries to actually acquire or use our drones instead of us always using someone else's.
So, I had the benefit of being at the show and seeing the Wisp air taxi. James, to my knowledge, you're the only one of us who's been in a Waymo. This is a air Waymo, correct? Like
Yeah.
an unpiloted system that takes you from your home to Applebee's
Yes,
through the air.
and luckily the Waymo I was on wasn't on fire or got so.
Too soon.
Steve? Are you getting on this thing? Are you getting on the Wisp app and going, hey, I want my baby back ribs?
I don't even get on
then,
most carnival rides anymore. Like I don't know if I can hop in that thing.
Yeah, no,
so in
it's
the comments, if you're taking this thing, put it in the comments. If not, let's see who's winning. But yeah, I know technology moves
I'm
pretty
sure
fast.
our kids will be riding around in these things like we do Ubers now, right?
Yeah, it's like the Jetsons. Don't we want to be like in the Jetsons? But that stuff scares the crap out of me. Like I I drive most of the time when me and my wife are in the car because I want that control. I want to know. And I haven't taken a Waymo, even though I take a lot of Ubers and Lyfts. Just because seems a real sketch. How fast do you think this stuff will be integrated? How many years?
Ooh, that a good 5 years, 3 to 5 years, I would say.
Fast?
Alan, what's your take?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, well, I mean, I kind of side with you on 3 to 5 years, but I also think it's going to take a little bit longer than that.
What do they need? What do they need to test? Like, let's talk about that stuff. Obviously landing and taking off. Where are you gonna do that? Like, you can't parallel park this thing. You can't like have a rappel wire, so they can just jump out while people are eating their food on the sidewalk and everything's blowing everywhere. But what are some other stuff to consider?
Redundancy, parachute system, because that's the only form of backfall. Like if all your motors fail, you have to have a parachute system. And then public acceptance. Like, when drones first came out, people hardly even knew what the term drone was, let alone know what it looked like. And now I feel like, pretty much everyone in the US at least knows what the term drone is. And so we have to get to that stage with eVTOLs and really just try and get the public's acceptance of it. And the only way to do that is through testing and being beta testers and running through the weeds and trying to figure out what the issues are and advancing the technology as much as possible.
And
I
social
think-
media.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's popular, right? What's a trend? But I want to piggyback on what you said. Yeah, the public acceptance. That's a big deal. Like that 3 to 5 years is more of like at the 5 year mark, there is a standard rule set for these things to be operating in the airspace. As far as the span of use and the public acceptance of it, or the public trust in it, I agree with that. That's where I think where when it comes into it's going to take longer than 5 years to do that. And of course, they're not. I don't think they're going to let these things fly without a backup pilot and a manual control system in them, at least for a decent amount of time before they actually let them become the case where you don't need a pilot on board. That can take a very long time to get to. And plus, I don't think a lot of people are going to openly accept hopping into one of these aircraft and trust a autonomous system completely without a pilot on board, because you're literally risking your life at that point. I mean, but then again, same for me in a Waymo. But I'm telling you, next time I'm in Phoenix, guys, I'll have to do a joyride. It can fit 3 people, so we'll actually 4 people.
In
So
cities
we'll
with the
have to go.
Waymos, in cities with Waymos, are people just hopping in those? Is it just part of life now for most?
Yeah.
You know,
San Francisco, I saw people, hopping in there. I see them on fire a lot in LA right now. So,
I think don't underestimate people's ability to accept new technology nowadays. It's easier than ever.
I want
But-
to get to the Fifth Element stuff, where everything is on different levels. You have all these
Don't
skyscraper
did those all
living
have
things.
drivers? Like those all had real drivers. That's what I was thinking. Like sci-fi movies, ones I can think of, they're driving in the sky, but they're still a person driving.
Well, the scene I'm thinking about, he's getting Chinese food out of the flying Chinese restaurant. So I'm like,
The
that'd be
flying
cool.
barge, yeah.
Yeah.
That-
So
Now, or replace and now like put a modern Zeppelin up there, bring Zeppelins back, right? Like the big floating blimps, and make those into like flying restaurants that people can take air taxis to. Have a little event. So instead of doing
that would be awesome. I didn't even think of that.
instead of
Floating
doing like
restaurants that you have to land on, that would be super awesome.
instead of doing dinner on a crane, take an air taxi up to a blimp. Have dinner.
Or basically a cruise ship in the sky that never lands, and you just take your flight up to it.
There you go. They'll have a little port
And
and
it
jetty
just
system.
goes around the earth all the time.
Yes. Or what is it? Yeah, so there, I mean, I would love to see that come to fruition. For me, when I decided to try the Waymo, it was more like out of pure interest of like, how does this thing really work? Because you could see like the LiDAR sensors spinning, you could see the cameras all over them. So me being the geek that I am, I'm looking into this thing like I gotta see how this thing works from the inside, or see if I can ask questions, because they always have someone on call on the inside of these things. And to your point of public acceptance on those, it's a whole lot different when there's no risk of it falling out of the sky. So there's, even though they could potentially crash or something else could happen, like most people will have that acceptance naturally when manually driving a car themselves, if they can drive.
Oh, I would say the same would apply if it was a uncrewed watercraft.
It just
You know,
don't
and
go too. Sorry.
eventually the FAA is going to have to come out with some sort of benchmark for acceptance of crashes, like they do with manned aviation. And I think that's going to be a big hurdle for them, because no matter which way you look at it, at least, and I'm going to piggyback on Christian, your idea, at least in a car, you can stop your momentum and get out. In an airplane, you're either going to land or you're going to crash. One of those two is going to happen. There's not like you can stop your momentum in the air. And I think that's going to be a difficult challenge for the FAA to come up with, is deciding what type of benchmarks are okay for crashing in eVTOLs.
I will say this. It will be a minute till we see them become more accepted, like they're actually like, even seeing them as much as we see normal general aviation aircraft or commercial aviation aircraft, airliners flying around. I think it'll be a while till we get to that point. I think what we will see, though, a little more of in the decade, once the BVLOS rules have been approved, and then later on when we have multi-UAS approved at a national scale and it no longer be like a waiverable thing, but there's a rule set for it in place, is that we will see drones become more prominent in either metropolitan spaces and even sub-rural, or even like towns like I'm in, where there's like town about 75,000 people, so it's not small, but it's not a city either. to where you'll see their increased use, because by doing that, you can now set a drone and leave it out in a box somewhere connected to Starlink, and then have it just hardlined and it's recharging its battery. So here's one thing I want to talk about this, because it really changes the idea of how like an operator thinks they do operations with and flying a drone, because now you go out and either manually fly this thing, or you're sitting at a computer pressing the go button and watching this thing do what it needs to do. Well, beyond visual line of sight, this drone could already be out there in some capacity in a housing encased somewhere, and I could walk from my bedroom over to my home office, log in, connect to this thing over the internet, not just one, but a multitude of them at different times throughout the day, and fly them. I could be here in Pennsylvania on the East Coast, flying drones in Kansas, Oklahoma, like doing wind turbine inspections from the comfort of my home. But because I know how to do that, or I have the capability to fly beyond visual line of sight, that now unlocks that capability.
So with the hopeful rise in drone production, drone operations, what do you see that doing for people like our students or people who are interested in UAS? Like, what is this going to do to the industry for folks who are looking to get into it?
So right now, there's already a growing demand for individuals who are flight test engineers, and individuals who are good with designing drones. Almost, we say systems engineers, but they're individuals who know how to put the different pieces of a drone together to make it work and make it function. So that's already growing in demand. The companies are already asking for individuals who have that experience, and they need more of them. And then that's one big thing for our students, especially those going through the associate's degree program, because they're going through the courses that prepare them to get started in that field and in that phase, because you're always going to need pilots to test out a new drone design, and you're always going to need people to build them. You're always going to need people to produce them as well. And that goes and coincides in parallel to the increased use of UAVs at fleet scale when we're talking about beyond visual line of sight. Because when you do that, you unlock it to where you can be constantly flying 24/7, because the pilot doesn't need to necessarily see the thing. So now you're going to need more aircraft for larger fleets, which means you're going to need more people capable of production, more people to test them, make sure to do QC, quality control checks. It's the opportunities hit from both sides, either being an operator or involved in their development. And now with larger fleets, you need more operators. With more operators, you need more managers. So it goes in all directions here. But Don, what are your thoughts?
I was just going to say that you can be the best pilot in the world, but if that's all you know how to do, you're not going to go very far. But if you know the system very well, how to troubleshoot, how the system works, that's going to take you real far in this industry. And I think, some of the best pilots also have their A&P mechanic license, because they know how the system works, and they have that knowledge that can help propel them forward. So I think, to piggyback on your idea, troubleshooting and technological development, knowing how the system works, knowing why it doesn't work, all those are important elements to propel you through this industry.
And sorry, one last thing, Christian. I'm sorry. One last thing.
Good.
It could very well transform the idea of a UAV operator being a travel job to a work from home job as well, depending on how things progress. Sorry,
Definitely.
That's the last little bit I want to put out there.
No, because I want to know, how do our programs here at SDI approach the operator side and the engineer side?
Got it. So Don, I'll let you cover the operator side. I'll take the engineering side.
The operator side, well, we have a lot of courses designed around operation, but also a lot of courses designed around the troubleshooting, for example, like flight test and evaluation, UAS 231. That's a big one, and we hit a lot on the troubleshooting in there and how the drone system works.
But they'll learn how to fly a lot of different style drones, or the basics of flight within our programs.
UAS 101 is one of them. UAS 201 is another one for remote sensing. They also have a drone in there that they learn how to fly and collect data from the sensor of the camera.
So to kind of tack onto that a little bit, so if you're in the certificate program, it's mostly on the operations side. It's mostly learning how to fly the drone, how the sensors work, and how to do different data collection or flight patterns to collect different data. It's a lot of manual flying. But in UAS 101, there is some flying that we do that's automated as well. And then same thing with 201. When you in our week 5 assignment, you're actually doing like an orbit around an accident scene and recording it, and you're uploading it to the cloud, and it's creating a 3D model of that accident scene or that mock accident scene. So you're not just getting some manual flight skills, you're getting some semi-autonomous flight skills in that as well. And that's just on the practical hands-on flight operations side. Of course, we cover the Part 107. We cover in UAS 202, we talk about, okay, so you know how to be an operator, but how do you operate in a flight operations department in a company of operators, right? How do you think like a flight operations manager if you were appointed as one? How do you manage training? How do you manage maintenance? How do you manage the allocation of your fleet and the resources in your fleet to meet vendor demand? So those courses primarily cover that. And then in the associate's degree program, there is 2 courses that we have, 234 and 205. 234 gets you more focused on the workflows and processes of using thermography sensing for different applications like transmission line inspections, roof inspections, solar, and all that. But then 205 talks about the drone mapping workflow and gets students familiar and ready for that. And that is definitely an autonomous flying operation where you're pretty much telling, here's where the area you want to map. The software automatically generates the flight path based on the grid overlap and everything. We teach how to do that based on what the client needs. And they press the go button and it goes and does its thing. It flies and the pilot is there to monitor. But so that's on the operation side. Now, for the engineering side and the flight testing side, what we're talking about is first we're getting you started with the electrical fundamentals of what you can find on UAS components. We get down to capacitors, transistors, basic circuits, all that in UET 102. But then we do that early as well, because it's good to know that stuff even when you're just learning on the operational side. But then we get into classes like UAS 213, where you're actually getting a kit component, you're building the aircraft from commercial off-the-shelf components, you're doing some troubleshooting while doing the setup, you're flashing the operating system on the autopilot, you're calibrating the sensors, calibrating the electronic speed controllers, and then you're validating this thing. So essentially that one course is giving you enough skills to take something from concept to reality as far as the design concepts and validating the aircraft design itself. But then in 231, it takes it a step further, because for an aircraft to be sold commercially or be approved to operate in certain situations, you have to put it through a test campaign. You have to validate all its functions. You have to prove it can do what you've designed it to do in full, and then also prove its reliability. And all that data you collect throughout a flight test campaign as a flight test operator, someone who can also manually fly the aircraft and collect that data and test to the design. So a little bit of engineering, a little bit of operation. There is already a very large demand for individuals that have those skill sets that they need right now. And then we have the systems engineering side of it and project management. So if you don't just want to be someone who is working on developing it as an engineer or a flight test engineer, there's the management side of it as well. How do you lead the project? How do you lead a team through it? How do you guide them? And then top it all off, SIS 201, thinking in systems. Drones are a collective of different technologies. It's in the name, an uncrewed aircraft system. So that class really brings everything that you've learned and has you practice that systems thinking mindset. Because when you get to that level, you can think either as an operator or as an engineer, but as long as you're thinking throughout the entirety of the system, it makes you highly valuable in the field, no matter what position you're in. And again, both sides of that leads to the coming boom and growth that we're going to see thanks to this executive order that has recently been announced.
So because of this executive order, come to school here. SDI.edu,
Yes.
request information. It's the wave of the future, everybody. So
Yes.
for establishing
Certainly
America's
is.
drone dominance. So, Steve, what do you got? You got any questions?
I think that's pretty much it. I mean, last question is, is it going to affect the big players in the industry first, or is there room for the small to medium-sized businesses to catch up? Is this ringing the bell? Like, come on. That means the government, FAAs, everyone's on board. Like, now's your chance. Come get it done.
I I think yes in two ways. To those who are already, the companies in the industry that have already been in it for years and have been preparing for something like this, they've been waiting for the keys to be turned, so they're immediately going to take advantage of it. But on the bigger portion, yes, it's a bell ringing. It's like, come one, come all. It's time to get in as a group and really push to really make the UAS industry in the United States a dominant player in the world stage.
Yeah, this is going to be a collective effort. Not just one party's gonna, but all parties are going to contribute to this and help move this industry forward.
Yep.
All right. So short answers only. We're going to do everybody. Why should Americans care about a national drone policy? Don.
Short answer is drones are not going anywhere, so you kind of have to care. You're going to see them. Just help move the industry forward and propel it forward.
James.
Adoption, adaptation, like Don said, they're going to be here for a while. So best to learn about them, best to get involved in them, either for the use of them or for the countering of them, as we've seen as well, because they can also be seen as a security threat, depending on. So there's a whole industry behind that as well.
So know what might be spying on you or trying to drop something in your backyard.
Used for nefarious purposes. Yep.
Okay. Steve, what humorous thing do you have to say?
USA, USA. We should be number one at everything, at least in our heads.
We should. I mean, honestly, best country on the planet. So, and I've been to at least 2 countries. So take it from me. Yeah. And I'm not going to answer one because I'm the host. So I'll just ask the questions. So, all right. Well, that does it for this episode of The Flight Path. As I mentioned earlier, I'll put a link to the executive order in the article in the description, but also if you want more information on our certificate program, on our associate's degree, the course descriptions are on there. I know we use a lot of course not titles, but course numbers to match those numbers to the course titles, to the course descriptions. Go to the website, sdi.edu today, talk to admissions reps, get some feedback. But for Don, James, Steve, I've been Christian, and that's been The Flight Path. Everybody say bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.